Hi, welcome back to Crimson Glass on YouTube, and this is the first in a series where I am going to break down General Hospital scenes. I have asked for people to submit their favorite scenes. We'll start with the good, and I'm going to start with my favorite scene. And you might be sitting here thinking, why do I care what you think? And you know what? That is that's a very good question. Particularly if you have stumbled across this because it got recommended to you, you saw it on the YouTube's recommendation list. Maybe, I don't know, I highly doubt I'm in the algorithm, but maybe I will, you never know. So let me introduce myself. My name is Melissa. I go by Lissy Love here on the nets, because I'm old. I've been around the GH fandom since 1997. I remember the days of GeoCity and One List and all the groups. I used to write fanfiction back in the day in 98, 97, era for Jason and Carly and Lucky and Elizabeth, so you know that I'm serious. Okay. Since 2002, I've been writing for Jason and Elizabeth. I currently write at Crimson Glass. That's why the name is named Crimson Glass, named for the color of the glass that Jason gave Elizabeth on Valentine's Day in 2001. So that's where I'm from. I've been watching General Hospital since... I guess it's always been on in the background. I'm one of those kids. I'm like one of those second generation viewers. My mom grew up watching it. She got my grandmother into watching it. Particularly, my other grandmother was an NBC house, or was she a CBS? I don't know. She was an ABC viewer. My uncle used to watch it. My dad has watched it. They all watched in the 80s with the Ice Princess and all that stuff in the late 70s, early 80s. So when GH was a household name, my family got into it. And we've watched ever since. So some of my earliest memories are random scenes. And in fact, the scene I'm going to talk about today is one that aired actually before I started watching on my own. I started watching and stealing my mother's VHS tapes and not waiting for her to watch them back in 1997 and 98 when Elizabeth Weber came to the screen and gave us the last 24 years. Some of it's been good, some of it's been bad, and some of it's been ugly. But Becky Hurst is my queen. Which is why you might be a little surprised I'm not starting with her. And the reason I'm not starting with her is I'm starting with for the scene that's coming up for two reasons. One, it's the first scene I remember, watching all the way through. Other things I remember from before this period are just snippets. I remember stuff from, the Ned and Lois bigamy storyline because they're funny. But, this is one, I remember everything about watching the entire episode that aired that day. Because we knew that this was going to happen on this day, and so my mom was watching it, and I was like, for whatever reason, on this day, I sat next to her and I watched the whole thing and cried like a baby. I was 11. And I did not, start watching afterwards, but this is the scene I always go to when I think of what General Hospital could be and should be, right? And number two, it's the perfect scene. Absolute perfect scene. And I'd like to break down why I think it's the perfect scene and how I think current GH could learn a thing or two. So, if you enjoy this breakdown and you'd like to see me either enjoy your favorite scene or, hey, let's tear them apart. Which scene do you think is terrible and you'd like me to explain to you exactly why it's terrible? I'll do those too. We're going to focus on positive for a while because if you look at my Twitter that's not a word, my Twitter timeline, I spent a lot of time ranting. And I'm very funny. Even if I am the only person who thinks so, I'm hysterical. I'm also very, I like the profanity, but here on the YouTubes, we're going to try and, eliminate that, because, they don't like that so much. So, I hope you like it. If you like it, leave a like and subscribe, because I think these might be really quick to put together. If they are, I can do these often. If they're not quick to put together, which I'll find out in the editing, I'll do them less often, but I can probably do one or two a month, maybe once a week. I don't know. It depends. Do you like it and want more? Let me know. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so this is a clip that is about 3 minutes and 55 seconds. I'm really excited to watch this. So, yes, you are not crazy. This is Stone's death. So, Stone Cates and Robin Scorpio are General Hospital legends. They were a teen couple that people have loved pretty much forever. And if you don't know who Stone and Robin are, first of all, get V to YouTube, find the playlist, and go into it. This is the storyline that Joss and Oscar were probably supposed to be. Robin, of course, most of us know, is the legacy daughter of Robert and Anna. She came on the show in 1985. Kimberly McCullough has played her since 1985. We have never had a Robin recast. So we've watched this child grow up. I think she was 7 when she came on in 85, and we've watched her grow into, I think Kim is somewhere in her 40s now, because she's older than me, I would imagine, by a couple of years. I'm born in 84, so that sounds about right. So she's in her early 40s, because I'm 37. And Stone was the younger brother of Jagger Cates, and Jagger was a very kind of played by Antonio Sabato Jr., who we used to like, but I'm sure it's fine. He came on the show in the early 90s as part of the teen set, and Stone followed later. They got together pretty early on, and they were a very sweet couple, but Stone had gotten HIV on the streets. So, like, he was living on the streets, and he ended up catching HIV, and this was a really, really important, pivotal moment and storyline for GH. Like, this was an important one. This is the one people still talk about. This is when this aired. It seems like such a crazy thing now, but when this aired, AIDS and HIV was very much seen as a bad people's disease. And then the show did something that I will never, ever forget. It did something that I don't think they would never do today. Robin, legacy daughter, legend Robin, was given HIV. She is HIV positive to this day. There's never been a correction. They've never dialed back. This was GH, the time of consequences. So anytime I do a scene in this series, I'm going to be doing a lot of GH in the 90s. This is the GH I first found, and this aired in November of 1995. I was 11 years old, and I was watching it with my mother, and I had not watched any of this. I think I'd watched, like, off and on. Like, I'd caught, like, the random episode from time to time, but, like, I was by no means somebody who came home and watched it with my mother at that point. I was aware of some things. I watched this with my mother the entire episode, and I cried. Because I don't think you need to be a GH fan. I don't think you need to know the history to see what's happening here and to see the absolutely incredible performance that these two are putting in. I'm almost sorry that in order to avoid copyright claiming, I have to talk over this. But here we are. So, let's go ahead and watch.
I'll go get you something to eat, okay?
Kimberly looks so young here. I think I always forget just how young she was in 1995 and how young she was during this first round of her GH time. She's like, I always feel like Robin should be older than me, and I look back and, like, she's clearly younger than me at this point. Like, she's younger than I am now, and it's so weird. And, you know, it's just it's really good.
Okay. By the window in the light.
At this point, Stone is in end stage 8. Like, they know it's a matter of time, matter of days, matter of hours, minutes. It could be any point. And he's also mostly lost his sight. And I think that's something that if you hadn't watched earlier, you might not know. So he can barely see her at this point. So they're up, and location-wise, they are upstairs at Harborview Towers. They're in Sonny's old penthouse. Stone and Sonny were very, very close at this point. Stone was the original Jason in a lot of ways. He was the person who really humanized Sonny. So that's really what's important to know about him. Okay. Make this bigger as we get really sense.
you. Oh, Robin, I see you.
There's 1 more minute left in the scene, and I'll let it play because I think it's important to see this. There's a couple of things that I think make that scene what it is. And one, it's Michael Sutton and Kimberly McCullough. Like, that's number one. Michael Sutton makes you think he's about to die, and I've never believed a dying scene more in my entire life. The way his expression changes when he says, "I see you," and the way the camera actually does the work for the viewer and gives you an idea of what Stone's seeing in those moments, and the joy in his face and in his voice when he actually does see Robin. And that it is his final viewing. Like, how you don't need to have watched their entire love story. I have not watched the entirety of Robin and Stone. I've never ordered those DVDs like from my peoples. I've watched it mostly on YouTube. They exist mostly in memory for me based on this scene, based on the way that they've always treated the memory of Robin and Stone. You don't have to have watched every minute to just feel the power of that moment. And then when she comes back to the bed and she closes his eyes and his, he's the fact that it's just, it makes that scene so incredibly beautiful. And then, so it's the performances, of course, that are number one. The second thing that I think that we don't see, we get good performances, of course, still today, but I think what we're missing is the camera work. The very slow movement of the camera, the gorgeous scoring. General Hospital in the 1990s had some of the best orchestral music. When we get to BJ's death, and we will, because it's already been there like I have 6 people. I got like 6 different scenes from just that storyline alone. Not Barbara Jean, it's coming, I promise. They had some of the best instrumental music. And Stone and Robin had their own theme, and I'll have to find it somewhere. So it's the scoring of that moment. It's the performance. It's the camera movement with the way they framed Robin in the window and had the coming in. It's the editing. This is a long scene. This is the first cut. We have not cut for 3 whole minutes. Does anybody else remember the last 3-minute scene they saw in General Hospital? I don't remember. You're allowed to get lost and absorbed in the moment. And now Sonny comes in. And this is Sonny in 1995. So we're talking like 2.5 years maybe into his run. I'll have to double check. I think he's married to Lily by this point. So we've already gone through. Yeah, it's got to be at least enough time. Because he's already gone through his first run of, So we've already gone through the first role of Brenda. Because, yeah, that's Brenda's in 94, 95. So this is Sonny, Lily, and Brenda period. So the Sonny that is my favorite. So let's go ahead and see how Sonny handles it. Look at that makeup work.
Okay.
whenever I have particular moments where I'm not feeling the love for Sonny, I go back to these early moments when I fell in love with him for the first time. It was this mid 90s period that I really kind of just like, Sonny, like that's the era when those of us who love Sonny, the majority of us fell in love with him during this period. And the extent that a lot of people still love Sonny, I think a lot of us remember this and we're going back to it. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it definitely feels like that's how it is. What makes Sonny's reaction to it, and the reason why I let it play, because obviously I was really just focusing on Stone's actual death, but I think watching Sonny's reaction and the way that the camera just lets him react, he gets to go through all of it. So if you go back and like he's like, is he asleep? And then Robin doesn't really say anything, and then he gets it, and he starts taking it in. You actually watch him go through the process of it, of taking it in. He's very physical. Maurice is a very physical, like, he just, he does everything. He touches himself. He has to, like, sit with it, and he's very restless. And at the very end, he's okay, which he is. He's at peace. And Michael Sutton, by the way, doing the God's work right there. Everything about the way that this scene was constructed, the words, there's very little dialogue in this 4 minutes. It's like, do you want a sandwich or whatever? I'll make you something to eat. Can you stand in the light? Oh, Robin, I see you. And then Sonny, is he napping? He's okay. That's it. That's like so little dialogue, and it's so brilliantly written because every single word makes sense. The beginning of it, where just the way that Stone looks at Robin and asks her, you can tell that he is like, this is it. This is all he's got left. So it's the dialogue. It is the setting, just like the gorgeous set design of that old Corinthos penthouse. If you don't remember the Corinthos penthouse, the last time I think we saw it was in 2000 I guess sometime in late 2004, late 2005. The set just is probably being deconstructed, but Jason's penthouse, where he and Sam have lived for the last whatever, is across the hall. There used to be a hallway, and then there was Sonny's penthouse across the way. And I'm pretty sure it was Damien's penthouse back in the day. Like, it was somebody else's penthouse before that set. It was somebody else's before it was Sonny's. But it was Sonny's from about 93 to about 2004. And it was really darkly decorated. It was Sonny. And like the original Greystone, which is Sonny's mansion that he's been living in since 2005. It was also, the original was very dark. Like, Sonny is a very darkly decorated character. So this room always felt like Sonny, even though it is obviously Stone. So the gorgeous set direction and the set design really works. The pacing, where it is very long, like that scene there is a minute long, but like it's barely got any dialogue. Its characters are allowed to absorb, to emote, to have a reaction. It's not just 3 lines of dialogue and cut to the next thing that something's helping on, where you see so there's the slow burn of the pacing is really beautiful. The scoring, the performances, like everything that makes a really good GH scene is in this scene. It is everything. And I could watch it over and over again, and I have. I have it separate. I don't have it just on YouTube. I actually have it on my computer because YouTube didn't always used to be a thing. And I think it's interesting that when I thought of doing this series, my first scene that I wanted to do was not an Elizabeth scene. And you guys know I'm a ride or die Elizabeth girl. She is my queen, and she will be here. I've got lots of Elizabeth scene. So many. I can't even. But when I think of the scene that makes me want to watch GH, what got me into it, what made me think that this was special, I was watching this when I was 11 years old, and I watched this and I cried, and my mom was crying too, because obviously Mom had watched it. And I won't say that I watched it after that, I definitely didn't, but I was like more off and on after that. Like, I was definitely like, if Mom was watching it, I was probably watching it with her. So they, like, sometimes, like, I'm not gonna like tell you I'm like I was die hard after this. I'm like, but no. The fact that I wasn't Die Hard after this, I was not a Die Hard fan until Lucky and Elizabeth. So it would take another 2 years before GH really pulled me in and snagged me. I still remember this scene 2 years later. I still remember the scene hold on, let me do math. 27 years. Jesus, I'm getting old. Like, the scene, I remember it, and I remember it. I remember exactly where I was. I remember sitting on the couch next to my mother watching the scene for the very first time, and I remember airing, and I remember crying. That's a soap opera. So that's why I started the series with this scene, because this, my friends, is what General Hospital does when it's good. It pulls you in from the first moment, and you don't even have to know. when you know more about it, obviously when you know the legacy of these characters, when you know what happens to Robin afterwards, I think it does make this a little bit more richer. But the fact that I, as an 11-year-old, was pulled in without knowing anything, I think that that speaks to the power of the people behind the writing, the executive team, the performances. Everybody on GH came together and made the perfect General Hospital scene. And this is the perfect General Hospital scene. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong, but you're allowed to be wrong. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. What's your favorite scene? Let me know in the comments, and it'll get put in. I'll do them all, essentially. I don't know how often I'll do these, because I haven't edited this yet. I don't think it'll take long to edit, because I don't, it's just me talking at a screen and telling you how much I love these people. I'm sorry, it's so beautiful. No, it really is. It's a beautiful scene, and General Hospital used to do these really dramatic things that were quietly dramatic. There's nothing immensely dramatic about this. There's no death. I mean, there's no explosions. There's no guns. It's just a really gorgeous character that they brought onto the show, let have a life, let fall in love, and then we watched him go. And he was only in our lives for a couple of years. Stone was only here from, God, 92 to 95, 3 years. 3 years. And the impact of this character is permanent. And that's what I want for my soap operas. I want this quiet drama. I want this quietly orchestrated, beautiful tragedy. And I don't get it very often. So we're going to explore all the places. So next up is probably a BJ or an Elizabeth. I don't know how long I'll go before. The Elizabeth 98 stuff is coming, I promise. All right. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.